Hi there, it's Dr. Rehani. Welcome back to our course on natural first aid for animals and people. Burns and scalds. That's not a fun topic. So when we have a burn, we want to verify the following information. The amount of skin that is burned, i.e. how large of an area is actually damaged and burned, and the degree of the burn. Okay, so are we talking about a first degree burn, where we have reddening of the skin, but there's actually no blisters? Are we talking about a second degree burn, where we have blisters and redness, and the blisters are quite painful? So you can see here, the first degree, there's no blistering, but the second degree, we have blisters forming. Okay, so that's a second degree burn. And as mentioned, the blisters are very, very painful. And here we've got a third degree burn. So we have deeper layers of the skin, and it actually can be painless if the nerves are damaged. These are serious and need emergency care right away. Okay, and here you can see we're getting into the epidermis, dermis, and the subcutaneous tissue. All right, so when we talk about degree, we're talking about the layers that are damaged. In the second degree burn, we've got the top two layers, the epidermis and the dermis, that are damaged, but the subcutaneous tissue is still okay. So let's use a common sense approach when we're dealing with burns. If the burn is due to an electric device, unplug the device first before touching the patient, and be sure to get emergency help. For chemical burns, flush the area with cold running water and get emergency help. And if it's a third degree burn, it can cause a loss of fluid and dehydration, so be sure to give the patient water or an electrolyte. You can use mineral water, Pedialyte, even some of the sports drinks can be used because they have a lot of sugar and salt and stuff in them, so that's important when there's dehydration. And dehydration, as we've talked about before, can lead to shock, so that is a very dangerous situation to be in. Get emergency help and treat as we discuss here while waiting for the help. A second degree burn should be seen by a professional, especially if it covers a large portion of the skin or if it's on the face or the feet. And the reason that we say face or feet, well, face is obvious, but feet because it's a large surface area. Okay, so it can lead to more damage. Third degree burn should always be seen by a professional. All right, so here we're going to talk about remedies you can use for first degree, second and third degree burns, but keep in mind they do need to be seen if they're second or third degree, and this you can use while you're waiting to see the doctor, or even during the treatment after you've been told what it is, you can add these in. All right. So first degree are simple sunburns, urtica urns. Now we've talked about urtica urns. Remember, it's used for hornet stings and things that look like burns, and here we're using it for burns as well. So taken orally in homeopathic form, a dose of 12C every 15 to 30 minutes for 5 to 6 doses or as needed. You can also apply it externally. You can use the tincture of urtica urns in water. You have to dilute it because it does have alcohol as a preservative. Or you could use stinging nettle tea, which we've talked about in a previous lecture. And the tea should be warm or cold, but not hot. So second or third degree burns, blisters have formed or are on the verge of forming. These burns are usually very painful. So Cantharis is a good remedy for those ones. In a 12C or a 30C, a dose every 15 to 30 minutes for 5 to 6 doses. Give it immediately in second and third degree burns while getting help. Cantharis is the Spanish fly, and you can see this beautiful red area on the fly, and that's how I remembered it for a good remedy for burns because of the red on the fly. Spanish fly, Cantharis. Burning pains, which are better with cold applications. Now that might sound strange to you. You might be thinking, of course burns are better with cold, but actually there are some remedies where the person or the patient has a burning sensation, but they actually will feel better with a warm compress. So This is this is important to remember, that it's not the same for every individual, and so this is one of the keynotes for Cantharis. Now, it can be any kind of burn. It could be a sunburn, a heat burn, or even a steam burn. Steam burns are one of the worst burns possible. Blisters have formed or are on the verge of forming. And it's also a great remedy for bladder infections where the urine passes as if each drop is scalding hot water. So again, the burning sensation is there in this remedy. Several years ago, my cousin-in-law burned her hand on our stove. She put her hand right on the element, and she got a second-degree burn. She had blisters, and she was in agony. So I gave her Cantharis orally by mouth, and then several times, and we put calendula cream on her hand. She had no scarring. The blisters healed beautifully. There was no damage. Okay, so it works very nicely. Another remedy that works nicely for second or third degree burns is arsenicum. You might remember arsenicum from our lecture on upset tummy. Okay, so again, the keynotes always fit. Anxious, so we use arsenicum where the patient is anxious, has chills or feels chilly, is very weak or collapsed, and the skin can look blackened or infected. So here we're thinking about gangrenous type of tissue, okay? So that's a good one to remember. And for any type of burn, if the burn is significant and the patient is at risk for going into shock, you would give aconite right away. Okay, so aconite is the remedy for sudden onset, things that happen quickly where there is circulatory collapse, shock, panic, fear of death. You could also give arnica for the pain in a 200 or a 1M. Here's a note, you should never apply arnica topically on open wounds. So there are products on the market, arnica creams, arnica gels. Those are great for bruises, but you should never apply them on an open wound, okay? Because arnica can actually crystallize in the blood, so that's not a good thing. Calendula is useful where blisters have broken open and after Cantharis has been given. I used it topically on my cousin-in-law's hand. Her blisters had not broken open, but I still used the calendula and it still worked. Helps to heal the skin and prevents infection. And 3 doses, 12C daily for 2 to 4 days. That was orally, sorry, but you can use the calendula topically as well. You can also use the ointment or dilute the tincture topically. We just talked about that. Hypericum calendula tincture. Skin wounds such as hot spots, burns, cuts, and open wounds. Speeds up the healing and prevents infection, reduces scarring. Dilute the tincture with water and apply several times a day. A second-degree burn from hot water. My brother burned his arm many years ago with a samovar, which you may not know what that is, but it's a Russian and Persian method of making tea. It's a great big boiling pot, and the teapot is put on top so the tea can steep. And his was an electric one. It was plugged into the wall. So he had it plugged in, and then he unplugged it and went to move it, and the water was still hot, boiling hot, and it poured all over his arm and burned him very badly. And he went to the doctor and got some vetropolisin antibiotic cream, and he used that for a couple weeks, and there was no improvement, of course, because it was a very bad burn. So I saw him at this point, and there was no healing going on. The arm looked horrible, and so I gave him this Hypericum calendula tincture. I had him dilute it and to spray the area twice a day. And I saw him 2 weeks later. It had completely healed. All the hair on his arm was growing back, and there was no scar of the burn. So that's how well this remedy can work. Now we're going to talk about causticum, which is pot ash, also used in pennies. Causticum is a remedy for old burn injuries, emotionally, where the patient has never been well since a burn condition, areas or scars that remain painful even after the burn is healed. They just don't feel normal again. Mental or emotional state that is linked to a burn. A dose of 30C 3 times a day for 2 to 3 days. So for topical treatment for any burn, you could apply the mother tincture of urtica urns diluted with water and soak the affected area. Keep the area moistened with the solution. If the blisters are open, you can use a mother tincture of calendula and apply it. Again, do not break blisters, just let them be. Or you could use the Hypericum perforatum and calendula tincture together. If you can get both of them, Hypericum and calendula in mother tincture, it's better. But if you can't, then whatever potency, the lowest potency of Hypericum you can get, whether it's a 2 or 3DH mixed with calendula mother tincture. Homeopathic pharmacies can make this one for you. This tincture is my secret ingredient. Indeed it is. It's wonderful for any type of wound, or burn, or abrasion, or cut. The one I get is from Boiron. This is what it looks like. And again, it has 60% alcohol, so you want to make sure you dilute it because it is too strong otherwise, and it will burn. The tincture is concentrated, and it's preserved with a high amount of alcohol, so it must be diluted. You want to add 2 to 3 squirts of the tincture to a cup of water. You can add it to a spray bottle and spray the area 2 to 3 times a day. Do not rinse it off. Let it air dry. So the spray bottle works nicely because you don't have to really touch the area then. If you were using a compress, it would be too much pressure and too painful. Okay. If there are, that's meant to say no signs of improvement, sorry, not so signs. If there are no signs of improvement within 3 days, seek professional care. Now this lady was nice enough to send in a photo for me. She had a cast on because she had some tendon surgery and she was having a reaction to the cast. She had told her doctor about how itchy it was, but they had told her to leave it. So when they took the cast off, this is how her arm looked. And just looking at it, it looks like a burn, right? Very irritated, very inflamed. And her sister's dog was being treated by me for something else. And so the sister asked if she could give the tincture to her sister for this, and I said yes, dilute it and spray it on there. So she did that because this was extremely itchy for her. It was hurting a lot. It looked horrible. So she used the tincture, and she ended up using the tincture 2 or 3 times, and this is the improvement after 2 to 3 doses of the tincture. So it works remarkably fast, and you can see what a big difference that is from this to that in just a matter of 2 days. That's how fast the body can heal when we give it the right tools. All right, so that's the end of our lecture on burns and scalds. If you have questions about this material, please post in the question and answer forum. Nikita's waiting for your questions. She's going to help me answer them. All right, we'll talk to you soon.